Hello ladies and gentlemen, Octo Turtle here. Today I'm updating my exporting guide from a year ago, the FL21 dropping, and that video being kind of terrible. I thought I'd make a full encapsulating exporting guide that I can refer to when I'm making my other videos. Now loaded up on screen here is how we're going to start. I have this loop I made with Thrax, and I'm going to show you how to export your melodies through Edison. So I have all my instruments in the playlist. At start, what you'll need to do is split them by channel. I go up to the pattern up here, I'll right click and split by channel, which creates the stems on the right side here. So you can bring these into the playlist, and this is what it looks like. From here, for melodies, what I'll do is I'll create a 16 to 32 bar pattern that someone can use if they don't want to use the stems. And so this is what I got. Now from here, what you'll want to do is create the stems. This allows a producer using your loop to have more control over how they want to structure it. Maybe they don't like how you structured it, or maybe they're thinking of something in their head. Hold shift and left click on any of these patterns and bring them over. Once you have one of each, what I'll do is I'll highlight them using the control left click, and then I'll control B a couple of times, and every other pattern you gotta delete. So control highlight, control highlight, control highlight, control highlight, control highlight, and then control X. From here, you wanna make sure there's only one stem per 8 bars, one stem per bar like this. Now there's a trick I learned from Cody. Take a hi-hat and put them in between. Now this is really useful if you have instruments that don't play at the beginning of the bar. Like my piano here, you can see that it doesn't play right away. So if someone is stemming these out, they might make a mistake and start their stem right here. So by putting this hi-hat, you're pretty much avoiding anybody making mistakes with your stems. So I'm going to do the same thing. From here, you want to highlight the entire loop using control left click, and hitting control alt C brings up this rendering prompt. These are my settings. So leave remainder 32-bit flow and hit start. Now your final loop will look like this. You'll have your waveform on the left, your stems on the right separated by the hi-hat, leaving us now to fully render it out. Double click on this, so bring up the waveform and hit Control E. So this will open up Edison. The Edison file will have your loop in it. There's a couple settings you gotta tweak here before you fully render it out. Now first, I like to mess with the title. I'll right click where the title is, and this will bring up the sample properties. I'll name the title. This is how I name mine now. You can name them in any other way. Just make sure you have the BPM, the name of the loop, and the producers on it. If you know the key of the loop, you can put this in here. You gotta highlight, hit Control C, put it in the comments, and put it in the file name. Titling your loops like this is very important. File name, comments, and title will be put into the metadata of the Windows file. I'll throw up a little screenshot on screen here so you can see what it looks like in Windows. But this pretty much avoids any form of stealing of the loop. Maybe you send it out to somebody, they rename it, but it'll always be in the metadata. After you do this, I like to hit tempo sync. This is optional. It really depends on preference. It's the same thing I do in the producer tag video if you want to go see that as well. The most important thing is hit accept. If you just click out with the X, it's not going to save it. Once that's done, you can hit save, and that'll open up your file explorer. Once you navigate to your loop folder, make sure you save it as MP3. I do this mainly because it saves storage. If someone's downloading your loop and it's 50 megabytes per loop on your weeklies, people are gonna get kind of mad. Once you've saved it as MP3, hit save, and it'll open up this MP3 export. Make sure it's 320 kilobits, that's the max bit rate, and hit accept. Now new with FL21, once you've saved your FLP and you're Xing out, it'll give you this option to save your recorded or rendered files. You want to make sure you delete these from your disk because you've already rendered the loop. This is going to make a second version and it's going to take up unnecessary space, and since it's a WAV file, it's going to be quite big on the storage. Make sure you delete these. And finally, I'm going to show you guys how to render out your beats. So what you want to do is go up to the top left, hit file, export, and this is my personal preference, but I always export WAV and MP3 together. So what I'll do is I'll hit WAV, I'll choose my destination folder, and so my settings will look like this. What I'll do is I'll make sure you click MP3 as well. Make sure your WAV bit depth is 32-bit float, similar to the loops. I cut remainders on beats because I always have my own outros, and sometimes with delay and reverb VSTs, it can get really stemmed out where it's just straight silence at the end. So I always just cut remainder. Make sure bit rate is maxed, and the rest of the stuff is as followed. You can just pause the video and check it, and then just hit start, and it'll put both of them in those files. So yeah, that's about it. That's the updated exporting guide. I'll be referring to this video a lot in the future, so if you're sticking around, if you're hitting the sub button, you'll probably hear me talk about this video in the future. And yeah, thanks for watching. That's all for me.